it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for 5 ways in 5 days where we're going to be making 5 different tag projects. So tags are great for the holiday season, of course, because we all are giving gifts, whether it's a gift card or presents of any sort. A tag is a perfect finishing touch to your holiday gift. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing 5 different techniques, 5 different designs for tags. Some of these are perfect for mass producing and others are more on the specialty side and take a little bit longer. But either way, I hope that all of the ideas that I share with you today are inspiring and that these will spark some ideas on how you can make some tags for your gifts this season. Let's start first with the easy one, the mass producing tag. This one is super quick to put together. It comes together like a dream, and I love how fun these are. So I'm using the new So Many Presents stamp. This is a cling stamp, and I'm also going to pair this up with simple holiday greetings. For this, I'm going to use a tag die. By the way, all the products that I'm using today are listed below in the video description if you're interested. The other thing you're going to want for this technique is I recommend having a couple of MISTI tools. Even if only you have one, I would definitely recommend the larger one because we're going to use that to stamp our background stamp, and you can also use it to stamp your sentiment. The fun thing about this background stamp is that the middle comes out so you can actually stamp a sentiment amongst all those presents. I've die cut my tag from some red cardstock. You don't have to use red, but red is the color I chose. And I'm just going to put a small amount of tape on the back side, so that way when I lay this down onto my MISTI tool, the tag is going to stay in place where I want it to be lined up against the stamp. For all the other tags, because I am going to be mass producing, I'm going to create a little alignment guide here from some tape, so that way I can tuck every single tag from here on out in the same exact spot, because I'm not going to be moving the stamp until I'm done stamping. So with mass producing, I always like to do everything assembly line style, so which means you do everything all at once. For starting off, I'm going to stamp all the presents on all the tags. We're using embossing ink for this because we are going to do some heat embossing. As I take each tag out, I'm sprinkling my gold embossing powder from Simon Says Stamp onto those presents. And I'll do that for every single tag as I stamp them. I won't be heat setting these yet. I'll do that all at once after doing all my stamping. So because I put that tape in my MISTI to align my tag where I want it for every single stamp, this is going to make it super simple for just popping these in place and then stamping the embossing ink on top. Again, we'll repeat the process of adding the embossing powder, and then once all of them have been stamped and put the powder on, we're going to go ahead and set this with our heat tool. By doing this in assembly line style, we have saved a ton of time. We don't have to go through every single part of the process repeatedly. Here you can see I'm embossing all of these presents all at once across all these tags. It makes it really quick. So because we have that nice open spot in the center of our tag, it's a perfect place to stamp a greeting. So I'm now going to go ahead and start stamping all the sentiments for these tags. I'm going to use the same sentiment for every tag to make it nice and quick and easy. I'm using embossing ink, but this time I'm using white embossing powder, which will stand out really nicely amongst those gold presents. As with all the other tags, I stamped every single sentiment the exact same way, and then I heat set those sentiments at the very end to finish them off. Because we have done all this embossing, we will now be able to add some ink to the outside edges of our tag. This embossing powder is going to resist that ink we're putting on top, so now we're going to get these really beautiful halos of darker color around the tags. For this, I'm using Simon Says Stamp Cherry ink and a blending brush to apply that ink. I'll just buff off any ink that might be sitting on top of our embossed presents, and here you can see we have this really dramatic tag. To enhance that white aspect of the tag, I did bring in some white Nouveau drops, and I'm just going to drop a few of these around the presents to add not only some dimension, but this adds a nice pop of color and fills in amongst the presents for a really nice finishing touch. I'm going to do this for all the tags and let them all dry. This took a couple hours for the Nouveau drops to dry, but then once they were, I just took some velvet trim from Tim Holtz, and I'm pulling this through the hole of each tag. I'm not going to tie this into a bow though, I'm going to actually use some gold twine to do that. So I just have these little strings of ribbon hanging off the tag, and then the bow is going to be what secures that string onto the tag. And this is gold thread. It looks really pretty with those gold presents and just makes this a beautiful and elegant Christmas tag. So that was fun and easy, making a whole bunch of tags all at once. Now let's step it up. We're going to shake things up and create a shaker tag. So I'm going to be using some pattern paper inside of my shaker tag that makes it really quick and easy to put this together. But you could always make your own background by doing some ink blending or stamping. I'm going to be using the Mittens and Mistletoe paper collection for my tags. To make my shaker tag, I'm taking a Simon Says Stamp large tag die and also a rectangle that's a little bit smaller than the tag. I'm going to die cut the tag twice, first from pattern paper and then white cardstock. With the white cardstock piece, I'm going to tape my little rectangle to it so that way I can cut out a frame in this tag. This is going to allow me to see through to the trees that are on the inside. So once I have everything lined up, I'll use Simon Says Stamp very low tack tape to hold that die in place and run it through my machine. Now we have this really nice frame, and we can line it with some red line tape from Simon Says Stamp so that way we can adhere a bit of acetate on the back side. So we're putting this tape on the back side of our tag, and the red line tape is super strong, so it's going to hold onto the plastic that we're going to use as the window for our tag. Once we have all of the edges covered with the red line tape, I'll remove the release paper and then lay a small piece of Simon Says Stamp acetate into that adhesive. Now this gives us a window that will trap our sequins in place that we're going to use as our shaker elements. I did get a little bit of ink on the corner of my tag, but don't worry, that's easy to hide with a little bit of embellishment. I never like to throw things out if I don't have to. So to create my shaker well, I'm using Simon Says Stamp foam tape to run this around every single edge, making sure to butt up those edges of the foam tape together so that way I form a secure well that no sequins will fall out of. These were some really small confetti, almost glitter type sequins, and then I popped in a few snowflakes. These are from Simon Says Stamp. And this way I'm going to get a really cute iridescent shaker that's not going to distract from the cute trees that are in the side of the shaker. That tree tag, because of course it's the exact same size as the tag that's cut from the white cardstock, is now the perfect size to lay behind our shaker, and it's going to not only trap those sequins in place, but then of course we're going to be able to see through to the inside of those trees, and we have the most adorable shaker tag ever. How adorable is this? So we're almost done, but of course we need to embellish it. So I thought I'd pull in a snowflake die, and I'm going to cut it from some holographic cardstock. Those iridescent snowflakes were making me think that holographic cardstock would look really good with this. I glued that onto one corner of the tag, and then I'm going to use some Simon Says Stamp sentiment strips and a bit of foil to foil this and create a really beautiful shimmery greeting. Simon Says Stamp sentiment strips are printed in toner ink, so it's really easy to foil these with deco foil. I always like to put a piece of cardstock on top of my sentiment strip and foil just to make sure that the foil doesn't warp or wrinkle as I run it through my laminator. Once I have this run through, I can pull this out, remove the foil, and as you can see, we have this really shimmery sentiment that's going to look absolutely stunning on top of this tag. I just popped it up off the tag with a bit of foam tape and then used a couple more of those iridescent snowflakes to glue around the outer edges. We're almost done, but a bit of twine or ribbon is definitely needed so that way you can secure this onto your package. So I'm going to use some blue ribbon that matched nicely with the pattern paper. I had this in my stash, and I'm just going to secure that along the top with a little loop. These are really sweet and add such a nice little accent to your holiday gift giving. I love the surprise of having the shaker. It's super cute, and it's a fun way to add that nice embellishment. I have another mass-producing idea for you. This one's a little bit more involved than the one we created before, but it creates an absolutely stunning and dimensional tag. We're going to be incorporating embossing folders from Simon Says Stamp into this design. Now you can use any embossing folders you'd like. I picked out a few of my favorite Christmas ones from Simon. Some of these are new and others are from previous years, but they are so much fun to use for this technique. So I'm taking a tag die from Simon Says Stamp and some white cardstock, and I'm just going to die cut a whole bunch of white tags for this technique. Inside of my embossing folder, I'll lay 2 tags because I have enough room to do 2 at the same time, which is a great time saver. And I'll run this through and emboss these designs into the tags. So I used quite a few different designs for all of my tags, and this is going to give me a nice variety too when I go ahead and put all these together into some beautiful holiday tags. I picked out 3 different colors of Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink. And to make the process faster, I'm going to ink blend each color all at the same time. So I started off with Cheeky, and I'm going to ink blend every single tag along the top and feathering that down into the middle. The middle section features cherry, and that's a beautiful bright red that I actually went down all the way to the bottom of the tag with. That's because I want to finish off the tag with orchid, but I wanted it to have a little bit more red to it, and so by adding that red along the bottom before adding the orchid on top, that changed the color of the purple and made a perfect combination for this tag. I want to enhance the embossing a bit more, so then with each of the colors that I used for the ink bunny, I'm going to go back over top of each section by dragging the ink pad over those areas. And so now that ink is catching on the raised surfaces of the tag only, and it's providing a nice bit of contrast. So the next thing I did was add a bit of splatters to each of the tags, and I did this in assembly line style as well. I grouped all the tags together and then just started splattering away down the line. I used mica stain from Tim Holtz for one layer of splatter, and then to accent the tags, I used just a small amount of some silver spray stain, and I didn't use quite as much of this one because I wanted it to be more of an accent than an entire background of splatter. That silver is going to go really well with the etched berry branch die that I cut from Simon's Stamp matte silver cardstock. I die cut a whole bunch of these all at once, and I'm going to glue these onto my tag in the exact same position. To adhere them, I'm just going to use some foam squares, and I really only need to add the foam squares on the largest portions of the leaves. The stem is super small, and the leaves are going to hold this in place, so there's no need to break out any liquid glue. I can just lay this right on top of the tag, and those foam squares are going to hold everything in place. If your berry stem is hanging off the end, I do recommend cutting that off. It cleans it up a little bit, and you'll just repeat this process for all of the tags. Now, because these tags are embossed, I do want to make sure we have a nice smooth surface to write on the back side. So for each of these tags, I've die cut a second tag that is completely white and has nothing on it. We're going to glue this onto the back side of our embossed tag. And for this, I'm just going to make it really quick by just using a bit of Terrific tape from Simon's Stamp. I used a few strips, and I'm just going to remove the release paper off of all of those strips and lay it right down onto the back side of my tag. This cleans everything up really nicely and gives us a perfect place to write to whom this gift is going to be for. I'm going to embellish my etched berry branch with a few Christmas droplets from Tim Holtz. I chose red for this. You don't have to actually add these droplets, but I do think it adds a really nice finishing touch to the accents on this stem. The unexpected embellishment provides a little bit of gloss and shine and breaks up the color in this tag. Of course, like all tags, they need something to tie onto the top through the hole. So for this, I used some pink ribbon. We've got a lot of nice red and pink tones throughout this tag, and I thought the pink was a perfect pairing for this color combination. You could leave the tags just as they are, or you can add a greeting onto them, which I chose to do. So I'm going to pull out this really elegant Christmas greeting stamp set, and I've chosen quite a few different sentiments that I'm going to stamp onto Simon's Stamp black glossy cardstock. This cardstock has a really nice, beautiful sheen to it, and I'm going to emboss those sentiments with white embossing powder. If you don't want to emboss, you could use some white StazOn ink and get the same effect. I'm just going to heat set those sentiments and then use the coordinating dies to cut them out. This gives me a really nice bold greeting that can pop up off of my tag, and I love the fact that it's shiny. So we now have not only the beautiful shiny silver leaves, but we have the sentiment that's both embossed and has that nice shiny black paper as well. Everything ties together so beautifully, and this collection of bright, unexpected tags would be perfect for a non-traditional holiday color palette. So from non-traditional tags to something a bit more on the non-traditional shaped side, let's move on to shaped tags. So Simon's Stamp has a whole variety of different shaped tag dies, and I'm going to be using this holly branch one. I love how fun this is because you can use it with not only just cardstock but also pattern paper, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. So I'm going to die cut this pattern paper from Vicki Boutin from not only green but also some red colors. We're going to piece this back together and create a really nice holly tag. You also want to make sure you cut the outline layer because that has the hole that you can hang your twine or ribbon from. All these pieces come together so easily. So after you've done all your die cutting, you're just going to take some foam squares and pop each individual piece back into its place on the outline layer. I'm using Simon Says Stamp 3D foam squares to adhere these down. The 3D foam squares fits perfectly on all of these pieces, including all of the small little berries. Once all of our holiday leaves and berries are attached onto the outline layers, I just brought in some fun ribbon. This is some candy striped ribbon that I had in my stash, and I'm just going to use a bit of twine to tie those little strings onto the tag. How quick and simple were these? You could make a ton of these in one sitting. And this would be a fun project that you could do with your friends and family. Get together for one night and make a whole bunch of really fun pattern paper shaped tags. Like I said, we have a whole bunch of them over at Simon Says Stamp, from snowflakes to candy canes, Christmas trees, and more. Another way that you can step up your holiday tag making is to start off by using some pre-made tags. I have some black suede tags and also some KRAFT ones from Simon Says Stamp that I'm going to decorate with some stenciling. For the stenciling, I've chosen this snowflake stencil, and I want to use some different paste. I've got some stencil butter, and I'm also going to bring in some Gina K glitter gels. I always like to tape my tags to the back side of the stencil to hold them in place. For this project, I'm using the KRAFT tags and the Pearl stencil butter. I'm just going to carefully apply this stencil butter through the stencil onto the KRAFT tag. I want to make sure that I put a nice thin coating on top so that it doesn't take too long to dry. The black ones look absolutely stunning when you add some glitz glitter gel on top. I'm going to show you here when I use the red one to create a really stark contrast from that black suede with the beautiful glitz glitter gel in red. The glitz glitter gel also dries fairly quickly, especially if you apply a thin coat. So I'm just going to skim this through the stencil, and then always make sure to clean your stencils once you're done, so that way the paste doesn't dry. Once all of my paste has dried on the tags, I'm ready to decorate them with some fun embellishments. Let's start first with the black ones. I'm pulling out this new Joyful foil plate from Simon Says Stamp. And by the way, if you have the Joyful die set, the shadow layer actually fits perfectly with the foil plate, so you can use them interchangeably. So I'm going to use the outline layer to cut out all of my foiled sentiments. I always like to attach my foil onto my paper so that way it doesn't shift as I run this through my die cut machine. The paper I'm using is from Simon Says Stamp. It's their black glossy cardstock. Not only does it work perfectly for heat embossing and die cutting, but it also is a fantastic paper for foiling. After my machine has had a chance to heat up, I'm going to take this and run the paper and the plate through my die cut machine. And you always want to make sure you lay the pretty side of the foil onto the plate. Once you've run this through your die cut machine, the transfer has been complete, and you can just remove the excess foil off of your paper to reveal the sentiment. I can then use the coordinating dies to cut this out, and I'll have a beautiful sentiment that I can pop up onto my card. I always like making sure to use a bit of tape to hold this in place, and for this I'm using Simon Says Stamp very, very low tack tape. The sentiments are going to get popped up off of my tags with some small pieces of black foam squares from Simon Says Stamp. I just cut these in half so that way I have a small foam square that can fit behind all the small portions of the letters. This will get popped up along the bottom portion of my tag, and because these tags have so much going on, we really don't need to do anything else to them. So I'm going to keep it super simple and just have the sentiments and the glittery tags as my final design. I did, of course, add some nice ribbon to coordinate with these tags. I chose from red to some blues and even some festive red and green ribbons that I had in my stash. Let's move on to the brown KRAFT tags now that have the cute white snowflakes on top. I picked out some sentiments from Simon Says Stamp's Joy for You stamp set. This stamp set is perfect for tag making. It has not only some great greetings that say things like "Don't open until Christmas" or "Just for you," but it also has some fun patterns that you can stamp on your tags too. I'm going to pop my sentiments off of my tags using some foam tape, and I'm going to pair them up with some of these cute embellishments from Tim Holtz. These are some candy canes that absolutely are so realistic you want to eat them. I'm going to adhere those snowflakes onto my tags using some red line tape. The red line tape can hold everything from paper to mixed media pieces, wood, and more. And something like this candy cane will be perfectly adhered onto my project using that tape. So each of these tags feature a completely different design. Even though they all use the same snowflake, stencil, and paste, I finished them off completely differently. So that makes them really fun and unique. I wanted to add some glitter though before I finished these off, so I did bring in some glossy accents and then dumped a very generous amount of mica flakes on top to provide a very frosty finish to these tags. This will add the sparkle that these need to make them perfect for the holiday season. To finish things off, I just brought in some red and white baker's twine, and I'm going to loop that through the hole on the top of the tag to finish things off. These are adorable, and their small size is perfect for some of your smaller gifts or for baked goods. So there you have it, 5 different ways that you can make some very festive Christmas tags for your holiday gifts this year. I hope all of these ideas were inspiring and that you'll try them out as you create for the upcoming holiday season. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to stay tuned for more inspiration for our 5 ways in 5 days free class all week long, featuring so many different techniques for the holiday and Christmas crafting season. Thanks so much for watching, and I will be back soon with more to share.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.